him lisping, doesn't
Sorry
it?
about us.
Lisa, we're
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
We're sorry. We're the way we are.
Lisa's sorry now, too.
Here we go.
The earth is not your mother. The Joe Souchere Show.
Speaker of the House, Lisa Demuth, is with us via Zoom. And Lisa, everyone showed up for work today, I understand.
Well, Joe, we will see because we go into session at 3:30.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought they were there this morning. But you'll find out this afternoon.
I hope they are.
Yeah.
I hope they are. Probably by time you release, we should just about be getting to that work.
What turned this around? Are the Republicans agreeing to seat Tabke?
I think a couple of things really turned this around, and it's been interesting, kind of an interesting saga as we've walked through all of these 23, now 24 Democrats not showing up for work, us trying to do the work, but being limited by that. I think the public pressure, we were hearing from all over the state, and I know that they were, that if you don't show up for work, you shouldn't be paid, that you need to show up. You were elected by the people, so just come into work. That's one of the things that I think was really rising to the top. We also had filed a lawsuit in the Supreme Court against Secretary of State Steve Simon. He won't recognize us in the chamber to have brought a motion. And what we were trying to do is bring a motion that we could compel the people to show up and to do their work. And if they chose not to, there would be a fine of up to legislative salary per diem. I think a combination of all of the days, I can't imagine that 66 Democrats really wanted to stay out that long. And again, the potential fine if we had been able to make motions, if the Supreme Court would file or rule in our way, and then, of course, the pressure of the ongoing from the public.
What impact will that long delay have on something that's terribly important for this session, which is putting an absolute stop to the outrageous fraud that takes place in this state?
So we have a 5-month session. We were supposed to go in January 14th, and I want to be real clear that House Republicans have day one doing as much work in preparation as we could. We had committee hearings. The Supreme Court struck those down. We finish up on May 19th constitutionally. We have to pass a state budget, but to your point about fraud, Joe, I think that is an important thing that we've set up a committee. We have Representative Kristen Robbins as our chair, and that first committee hearing, now that Democrats are finally showing up, will be Monday morning at 8:15. What we're looking for is we want to make sure that the fraud is both exposed, but then it's also prevented. We need agency oversight, and under Governor Walz, there's record fraud, over $610 million in fraud, and not a single one of his commissioners have been held accountable. Nobody's lost their job, and it continues to go on. So we know that we've got the right answer to stop and prevent the fraud going forward in Minnesota. The committee is going to help us and will inform that work.
Do you think the DFL delayed coming back because they feared the discovery of fraud? I'm not suggesting that as individuals they are fraudulent, but did they fear somehow being connected to the fraud by their participation in lax oversight or whatever? Do you think that was a reason they might not have been back?
I think they wanted to shut down this idea of the fraud committee, and they made that very, very clear. I don't know that it would be that they would be implicated, but I think just the lack of response and the lack of changing anything, because there was full Democrat control. If they were serious about stopping fraud over the last 2 years, you would have thought that they would have done that work, and it never happened. I know they had a little bit of trouble with the name of the committee, having the words fraud in there. They just wanted agency oversight, but we're going to talk about fraud, and that's what we're going to do. So the benefit with this arrangement or the organizing agreement that was put through and passed, signed off on last night, it'll go before the full body today. One of the things that is really important to know is on that fraud committee, even if we return to a tie, we still have a Republican chair for 2 years and a Republican majority on the committee, a 5-3 majority. That does not change like our other committees were or will do if we go back to the 67-67 tie.
I think it might be among the most important things you can accomplish because the state is just bleeding this money. It's just outrageous. And when you add that on top of the spent surplus, the desire by Democrats to raise taxes, this whole session could be just focused on the dollar bill. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and we really are taking that serious. The first committee hearing on Monday will have the Office of Legislative Auditor in to testify, to walk through some of those reports that have been public, but they've not been answered to. And no, one of the things that is glaring in most of the reports is it shows a lack of internal controls across multiple agencies. So when you have that and no pressure or no accountability from our governor, then it will take the legislature to move in that direction and get the lack of accountability that has gone on and make sure there are proper internal controls. Those OLA reports, or the Office of Legislative Auditor, that is a nonpartisan office, but yet not only have the findings of fraud, they also provide recommendations. But we don't even know if those recommendations are followed because nobody's been held accountable on it.
When you mentioned that no one's been held accountable, it's even more interesting than that. Heather Mueller was the Walls education director. She left conveniently when things began to become too hot. And then you had Jody Harpstead just left, conveniently enough, when we're now discovering daycare fraud and Medicaid fraud and every fraud imaginable. And not only have they not suffered consequences, they were sent away with platitudes and a pat on the back and thank you for doing a great job. To me, it's very eye-opening. I hope the Minnesota public has had their eyes opened about what a mess this is. This is, I don't think any other state can claim to have this kind of corruption taking place.
That is right. And that's our tax dollars that are going out to fraudsters. And I think even over the waste of taxpayer dollars is the fact that when those dollars go out to fraudsters, they're not making it to the most vulnerable or the people that actually maybe need some of those services. Right. That is a disservice. You talk about the daycare fraud, or, there was a report last week about just absolutely horrific violations, licensing violations. But that's not keeping kids safe. But then the question is, were there really kids in that place or weren't there? There's so much that is unknown that we are ready to tackle this. Even though our legislative session goes from January till May, and then we return in February again, there's nothing stopping this committee from continuing the work through the interim and then into next year. This is going to be a 2-year full committee with the amount of fraud that there is in the state of Minnesota. And we're ready to tackle that.
Wonderful. Was your speakership held in contention by the returning Democrats? Was that a stumbling block that you survived, or how did that work out?
So in the organizational agreement, as put forward in different negotiations from the Democrats, they had not changed on their offer since January 13th. January 13th included the ability for me to take the title of speaker for 3 weeks, but then we would go back to co-speakers and shared power all the way across the board. That wasn't acceptable. They have a person, one of their candidates, that cheated in Roseville. That's what's called the special election. The governor finally yesterday called for the special election. That won't be until March 11th. So there was no need to have co-speakers when we're at a 67 Republican advantage with 66 Democrats.
Right.
So what we were able to work out in this final offer, and for whatever reason it came together on Tuesday where it hadn't for weeks, is I will be the full speaker, the only speaker in the Minnesota House of Representatives for the next 2 years. It will be in Republican speaker held, even though if they return to a tie, most of our committees will go back to a co-chair model and then equal membership.
Right.
Until they return to a tie, we have single Republican chairs, and then we also have a 1-vote majority on every committee. If they do return to a tie, then that will equalize out a little bit.
What do
It was
you?
a big concession. I mean, this is a big win
Yes,
for Republicans.
definitely.
This is a huge win.
It really is. In fact, a surprising one. I'm somewhat taken aback by it. What do you anticipate the mood, the environment, the vibe to be at 3:30 today? What's that going to be like?
Well, I'm always hopeful. And even through all of these hard negotiations, I thought somehow, even though I didn't really see a path forward, I thought somehow we would come to an agreement, and we have. The mood on the floor at 3:30, you have 66 Democrats that have never stepped foot in the chamber yet this year. This will be their first time stepping into the chamber. From what I understand, potentially the first time that they've even stepped into the Capitol because they were staying away in their boycott. Yeah. So when you look at just the responsibility and the honor that we have to represent our constituents and voters of Minnesota, when we take that, I hope they walk in and really sense that, both the weight of the responsibility and the honor that we've had. It is going to be a time that we can really try to rebuild working relationships, because we haven't even met any of their new members yet. So it's going to be a time of really needed to work through that committee process that starts Monday. Hopefully today we'll honor the institution and then be able to get forward. I'll be elected as speaker. We'll pass the temporary rules and this organizing agreement. We'll swear in the chief clerk and the sergeant at arms and, those different offices. But that's what today should be about. And then Monday when we return will be committees and getting to work for the people in the next level or the next areas.
Any of you fellas have a question?
I do. And this might be the most serious question you've ever been asked. Rochelle Olson of the Star Tribune has a very nice piece about you in today's Star Tribune. And it was revealed, Madam Speaker, that you show up for work every day with the same dry peanut butter sandwich with no jelly. My question to you, and you might want to think about your answer, Skippy or Jif? Go ahead.
Who in the hell cares if it's
Always Jif.
Yes.
Always Jif cream.
Yes.
And let me tell you, I do put butter on that sandwich.
Oh, butter and
I don't
peanut
like
butter.
jelly on it, but like butter on it.
Oh, wow.
What's that?
Why not jelly? That would give it a little.
Okay, but here,
Go ahead.
it's not as dry. Can I show you this? So I've had a really busy morning. I mean, all of these days just roll in. And so busy morning, we're just a short time before we're on the House floor. I've only gotten to eat half of my sandwich.
Well, there it is, folks.
Oh, there it is. Right.
There it is.
You are a lady of the people.
You mean as Madam Speaker, that's not made for you and laid out, and there's not a craft table at the Capitol at all?
Oh, Matthew, what I also learned is her hubby made her tater tot hot dish for her to bring back down to the Twin Cities.
Let's go. We're coming over
Yes,
at
he
6.
did.
We're coming over at 6.
What show is this?
This is how Garage
This is
Logic
real life,
should be,
Joe.
Lisa.
This is real food. Remember, food
Joe.
goes back to everything.
Joe, my question is, what life is this for me right now that we're talking about a peanut butter sandwich?
Say, will you do me a favor? Will you give a hearty hello to Bianca Vernig and congratulate her for getting the taxpayers to pay for her law bills for her private
See, no,
lawsuit?
she's trying to.
No, I know. I just wanted to say hi to
Don't
her.
draw out the controversy.
We were having fun.
Well, congratulations.
What
I'm
I
glad-
will
yeah.
tell you,
Yeah.
what I will tell you is our legal bills from trying to fight in the Supreme Court, when those were not paid by the taxpayers of Minnesota.
Wonderful.
So, but I know Representative Vernig thought that she should get a $100,000 settlement from her former employer,
Right.
and stick the taxpayers with the $10,000 legal bill. But
Yeah. Well, give her a hearty high for us.
not under
Send
my
that.
watch
Yeah.
anymore.
All right. And I'm glad you survived that watch, and thank you very much, and let's plan to meet again.